All right. Thank you all for joining us today. We're super excited to be able to offer some insights into this amazing organization in which we work, the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health. We're going to talk a little bit about, how we are actually pushing the frontiers of innovation across the health ecosystem. And I am so delighted to be joined by some of the top talents at ARPA-H, and there's others within the audience as well. So you're going to hear a little bit from each one of them about what they're thinking about, how their experiences are within ARPA-H, and then hopefully you'll have an opportunity to learn about us as an organization. And then over the next day or so, if you have additional questions, I think we're all going to be around. So with that, I am delighted to introduce my fellow panelists. I'm going to start on the far end with Dr. Jason Roos. He joined ARPA-H in March 2024 as the director of the Scalable Solutions Office. Before ARPA-H, Jason was a senior leader in the Department of Health and Human Services and the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response, where he served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary and the Director of the HHS Coordination Operations and Response Element, also known as HCORE. There he was responsible for leading the end-to-end operational coordination, logistics, and data system management for the nationwide distribution of the FDA-authorized COVID-19 vaccines, therapeutics, and home diagnostics tests. So that was a super easy job, I can imagine. Next to him is Kimberley Steele. Dr. Kimberley Steele joined ARPA-H in November of 2023 from the Lymphatic Education and Research Network, also known as LEARN, where she supported lymphatic research efforts on as Special Projects Director. Prior to that, Kimberley was Associate Professor of Surgery at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. She completed a minimally invasive and bariatric surgical fellowship at Johns Hopkins and joined the faculty, rising to Associate Professor while earning a doctorate in clinical investigations at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, as well as certification with the American Board of Obesity Medicine. She is recognized internationally for her contributions to research on bariatric surgery, the gut-brain axis, and neuroimaging in obesity. Welcome. Next to her is Glen Coppersmith. He is the currently ARPA-H's Proactive Health Office Deputy Director. In this role, he will stand up the office. He is already making great strides. It is not an easy feat for him to do that. He will look across the office portfolio and provide strategic support for the program manager, as his previous position was as the Chief Data Officer at Sondermind, a technology-enabled behavioral health provider network. Coppersmith was also a founder and CEO of Quantify, which I'm not sure I'm saying that right. Quantify, thank you, Glen, which built technology to understand mental health and well-being using data outside the traditional healthcare system. Glen is recognized as a leader and pioneer in the space of mental health and data science. His work has been covered in several major publications, including the Today Show, Scientific American. He frequently speaks about the scientific advances of ethics and pragmatics of using data to spark and sustain improvements in well-being. His master's degree is in psycholinguistics and a doctorate in neuroscience from Northeastern University. Welcome.
Accurate.
And then last, but certainly not least, is Dr. Jessica Green. She's a program manager at ARPA-H Resilient Systems Office and joined ARPA-H from Phylogen, a San Francisco-based microbiome analytics startup where she served as both the founding CTO and CEO. Prior to that, she worked as a professor of biology at the University of Oregon, where she co-founded and directed the biology and built Environment Center. Okay, so that is the most you will hear me talk in the next 40 minutes. What I really want to do is offer them an opportunity to provide, certain insights and experiences they've had. So I'm going to open it up to everyone, but to maintain discipline, I might start at Jason and come down to Jess. So all of us joined ARPA-H with a specific vision for the future of healthcare. We did. We're all passionate about it, and we all hold very tightly to those passions. So I'm going to start with Jason. Tell me what your vision for the future of healthcare was.
It's a great question. And as you alluded to in the introduction, spent a little bit of time on the COVID response. And I think that's really helped shape at least my vision of where my career trajectory is going next. So having spent the last 4 years at the forefront of the national response, one of the things that I saw in that context was the challenges that we had in scaling our healthcare system to respond to the pandemic. And then also the challenges that we faced in terms of accessibility. And these are things that I sort of heard about or sort of knew were challenges, but frankly didn't really impact me directly day to day. And then being thrust into this context and really seeing them at the forefront and also having to try and address them and solve those challenges was both incredibly challenging and rewarding at the same time. And so at the end of as COVID was sort of winding down, I never envisioned that, or the federal response to COVID's not gone. I never envisioned, it's like, what do you do next if after you've been, leading the logistics and operations with all the distribution and all of that? And then Renee gave me a call and said, hey, we have this last mission office called Scalable Solutions, and we're really thinking, we really need somebody to come in and work in this space. And the opportunity to take everything that I learned in the context of COVID and apply it here in this context where you have resources and we can really go after some high risk, bold initiatives and really have some lasting impact around scaling and access was just, it was a dream come true. So my vision is how can we really truly get to the point where we have both affordable and accessible medical technologies and interventions for everyone.
Love it. All right, Kimberley?
Okay, this is an awesome question and a tough one for me. I can answer it from being a surgeon and being in the trenches as a surgeon. I could answer this as being a parent of a child with a rare, complex medical disease and having to navigate the healthcare system. So I think for this particular question, I will answer it as to me being the parent through the eyes of a provider, of a clinician, navigating the healthcare system. And how tough it was for someone like me who has the experience, who has the background, who has the know-with-all to look out for my child and be an advocate, and yet how terribly difficult it was to keep my child safe. And then the other part of this was all the silos, and that there's so many incredible people out there. There are so many smart people. There's so much data, but it's all in silos. And if we work in silos, we can't get it done. And so as a parent, navigating the healthcare system, fighting to save my son, and understanding how lucky I was and grateful, I had made a promise to myself and to everyone else that if he could just be okay, I was going to help all those parents in the trenches that don't have the resources that I had to make it through. And so I heard about ARPA-H. I heard that they wanted to solve really tough problems, and I was tired of being told, no, we can't do it, because I believe, yes, we can, when you have the right determination, the passion, and the support. And so, yeah, so that's my vision, that somehow we make it better, that we're working better together, move people out of silos, bring in enabling technology that would never ever be thought of to come in to a system like the lymphatic system that's underappreciated.
Glen?
There's too many. As we talked about in my background a little bit, like I've done work in the mental health space, and the thing that enraged me more than anything is that I'm a data scientist and I could not get good data.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand the problem because we didn't actually understand as a field what better meant. And so we've done a bunch of interesting work in that space trying to place some data and some measurement around it. But if I get to do one thing at ARPA-H, it'll be improving the way in which we think about and measure mental health and well-being. But there's a very quick follow-on second, if you'll permit me, that every time we look at any of these problems, you can go back and say, like, what's the root cause of that? What is the root cause of that? What is the root cause of that one? And you end up with something it all ends up being the same sorts of things. We need to be more proactive about our health. And so when I got a call from, unfortunately not Renee, that might have been more compelling, but an old colleague of mine who's the director of the Proactive Health Office now, he's like, hey, here's the thing that we've been all looking at for 15 years, that, here's an opportunity to actually invest in proactive health and build that as a core piece of the health system. So that's why I'm here.
So, Jess?
So I'm formally trained as a civil engineer, and it's a long story, but I became a professor in biology with an expert in genomics. And based on what I learned, I found that it was crazy that we live in a society where our buildings do not have the capacity to censor or test for airborne pathogens and allergens using molecular diagnostic tools, so that if somebody is sick, like if somebody was sick in this room should act as a speed bump to slow the spread of infectious disease. So in 2010, I worked on this problem as a professor. I founded a center at the University of Oregon, and then I went into the startup world. I co-founded a company and developed technology there for 7 years. And when I learned about ARPA-H and its ability to really have massive impact, I decided to join ARPA-H. So what we're working on is Nest-like sensors that can autonomously in real time detect airborne pathogens and allergens, and then communicate with the building automation system to change airflow, for example, so that we're not only comfortable from a temperature perspective in a space, but we're also healthy.
I love it. All right, so I'm gonna spice things up a little, and I'm gonna go to Jason and Glen. They don't actually know what these questions are, which is, I love this.
We're along for the ride.
You are. Jason, you're focusing on scalable solutions, and Glen, you're focusing on proactive health. What do you see the biggest challenges in those areas that you want to tackle? So why don't we start with Glen, and we'll go to Jason.
I'll choose two, if you'll permit me.
I will permit you,
Okay,
Glen.
good. The first, so we have two core challenges across anything proactive health from my perspective, and Andrew or Scott in the audience might disagree. But the two core challenges are, we're looking at stuff that's outside the healthcare system, and it's going to take like 20 years to have an effect. If we're doing our job right, that's the time horizon. And Susan won't pay me, or for the trial, it's going to be 20 years long. And so a lot of the work that we have to do is to try to figure out how can we very quickly understand, create a tight feedback loop for what might be working, what will work in 20 years. So that's a core challenge that we have for every one of our programs. And the second is, people don't eat their vegetables. There's a microcosm problem there where like people just routinely do not do the thing that is better for their long-term health. I'm guilty of this too, we all are, it's okay. But the core of that challenge is, how do we get someone to do long-term behavior change that's durable? It's got awful hard.
Yep.
And we actually have not figured out how to do that. And yet, if we're going to look at things that are going to have meaningful 20-year effects, we're going to have to convince people to make the right choices more often. So those are my two hard challenges. Anybody who wants to work on them, we could sure use program managers. We got slots.
I gotta eat more vegetables, okay.
Yeah.
So when we think about scaling, I mean, to this audience, this is no secret. You know, there are plenty technologies and innovations that just get stuck, that are just unable to scale. And as we've been sort of thinking about, like, what are those barriers to scaling? What's inhibiting the ability for that particular product to get to market, or to get to the right people in the market? We really sort of fall in three big buckets. The first is manufacturing. The second is supply chain and logistics. And then the third one is the delivery of care. And across that continuum, and I'll just give an example in each of those, so just to put that into context for you. So on the manufacturing front, there's tremendous promise right now in what cell and gene therapies will bring and how they can completely transform medicine today. However, if you look at what the most recent ones that have been approved, they're in the $500,000 to millions of dollars and are going to maybe reach a couple thousand people. And we really need to flip that on its end. We need to be able to reach millions of people and cost in the thousands of dollars. It's easy for me to say up here, but that's a big, bold challenge that we have to get to in order to really ensure that these cell and gene therapies are going to be accessible and affordable to the people that need them. So that's in the manufacturing space, one of the challenges that we're looking at. In the supply chain and logistics world, hearkening back even before COVID, but certainly highlighted in the context of COVID, we saw many different challenges emerge that really impacted individual patients every day. Not the least of which was drug shortages and the lack of being able to get some of those common everyday things that you go to the pharmacy and we take for granted. So one is just being able to illuminate the supply chain and be more proactive about how do we anticipate and understand when we're going to have a problem and how do we use that data to then be more proactive. So that's one challenge space. In terms of manufacturing and the availability of these products, we're geographically connected, but we need to think about how do we manufacture and supply these things in a more sustainable way. And then lastly, the logistics aspects of moving, just you think about the vaccines around the country. I mean, we to store these in ultra cold storage, it was very challenging from maintaining that cold chain all the way end to end. So those are just a few areas in the supply chain space that we're very interested in addressing. And then lastly, on the delivery of care, we have a healthcare provider shortage. What are those technologies that enable us to really augment and help address the healthcare shortage side of things? Also, how do we bring testing and diagnostics closer to the patient, whether it's an emergent setting or in the home setting? So those are just some examples of areas that we're trying to tackle in our space and looking for people, the big, bold ideas to come and help solve those.
Thanks, Jason. Speaking of some of the great problem solvers that we have within ARPA-H, I'm going to turn to our two program managers. The program managers, for those of you who are not familiar with the ARPA-H model, are really the lifeblood, the engine that drives our organization. So, Jason, Glen, and I, we can all come up with high-level strategies of where we think the organization should be headed, and you just heard that. But nothing happens without our amazing program managers. And so I'm going to turn to our amazing program managers, 2 of the 21 that we currently have. And I'm going to ask them to give some perspectives on some of the work that they've been doing. So ARPA-H has a unique model that shapes the way we do business on a daily basis. I love this model. It is fast. It is agile. Were you surprised by how the funding mechanisms affect your roles here at ARPA-H? And then how is your work different here as compared to what it might be like in other agencies or organizations?
I'd be happy to take that first. Yep. The way I describe the role of a program manager at ARPA-H is we're really like impact investors, but the upside does not go to us or to our partners. We're really benefiting, health outcomes for all Americans and also people around the world. And so I find it tremendously inspiring to have the ability to seek out the top talent and the very best innovators, spanning from publicly traded companies to startups to academic labs, to come together and to really try to solve what we call these really ARPA-H hard problems.
Okay. I can say this is the best job and opportunity I've ever had. Not that I've had a whole lot of jobs, but as a surgeon, I could certainly help one individual at a time. And I worked really hard to be a surgeon and trained a long time. And so when I left surgery, it was tough on my soul a little bit, and I left because I had a child who was not well. And I needed to do more in the world to help the researchers because there wasn't funding for the lymphatic system. I had learned not only is it rare, but it involves this lymphatic system that no one was appreciating and no one was really funding at the level that we needed it to. We were told it was too rare. And I, as a physician, had never even learned about the lymphatic system, really and honestly. I was told, just if you see the white when you're operating, that's bad. And you know you've done something bad. And so I stepped away from my job to help. And I went into the nonprofit world, and I helped this small organization, and I wrote grants, and I did the things I could do. And it was too incremental. It wasn't moving fast enough for my child, for all the other kids that I was involved with in the trenches. So I decided I was going to start my own nonprofit, which I successfully did. But man, I am not a fundraiser. And yes, I got one young man into the lab, and he has a mouse model, and we have a biomarker, and we did it quickly, but all my energy, it wasn't in the right place. So I helped another big organization, the Lymphatic Education and Research Network. As Susan said, that's where I came from as special projects director. I helped the registries. I was trying to get the data better because we don't have data. We don't even know what the prevalence of lymphedema is in the US. Well, I heard about ARPA-H. It took me a whole year to really understand the funding and how to do this, but man, what an opportunity to bring the best and most capable people together, to work together in teams, to really do the unimaginable as I'm learning the language. But that's what we're hoping to do. And so I've launched and had the privilege to launch 2 programs, LIGHT, lymphatic imaging, genotyping, and phenotyping technologies, which is really highlighting the importance of making the lymphatic system, the invisible, visible, through imaging, biomarkers, and genomics and genetics. But now also GLIDE, so I'm going to use this opportunity. We have a Proposers Day coming up for groundbreaking lymphatic interventions and drug exploration, where we're asking everyone out there who wants to do the research and come into the lymphatic space, we're targeting the lymphatic system to not only treat primary lymphatic diseases, but agnostically treat all the common chronic diseases and rare diseases that have underlying lymphatic dysfunction. So please sign up for our Proposers Day. This is great to have that platform. So, October 1st is our Proposers Day, and it's hybrid, so please come.
I want to stay on the subject of your programs, because both of you came in and you had visions. When you first came in to seek to join the organization, you both had a really amazing idea of what you wanted to accomplish. And now I want to you both launched programs successfully. How did it feel to go from being a visionary to say, we can change some part of the health ecosystem, which is theoretical, it's on a slide deck, you're talking about it, there's some Word documents floating around, but now your programs are out there. What does that feel like? Let's start there.
Me first?
Sure.
Oh man, it's huge. And it's still sometimes not believable. Because for the longest time, we worked to get shine a light on the lymphatic system, and we're making small progresses, but it's not fast enough. And we have the opportunity to do this. And so for everyone that I've been in the trenches with, for the researchers that are excited, I just cannot say enough how my hope is that, well, I could help one individual at a time as a surgeon. Now maybe we can help so many. So.
Well, for me, because I worked both in academia and in industry with people that were trying very hard before the pandemic to figure out how to develop systems to detect viruses and bacteria that were airborne and to be able to assess the risk of being exposed to a certain amount of, virus or bacteria that's airborne. And then during the pandemic, these people that I was in community with professionally were working so hard, tirelessly, first to be able to convince scientists globally that this was an airborne disease, and then second, to come up with standards so that we could understand what are we supposed to do for interventions, what are the right air changes per hour in a pandemic situation. So when we first announced the Breathe program, and you can see that ARPA-H was solving problems like curing blindness, or having joints re-heal themselves, or navigating cybersecurity attacks in healthcare systems, this professional community said, Jessica, this is amazing that now there's finally going to be a significant amount of funding spanning industry and academia to solve this very palatable and tangible and technically possible challenge, again, of making indoor air safe and healthy and clean for everyone. So it's been a remarkable experience professionally.
I'm going to go back to Glen and Jason. So we are surrounded by these amazing program managers. You are both building your offices. Maybe for someone who is out there, who is thinking about, gosh, I'd love to join ARPA-H. I'd love to be a program manager. Why don't you talk a little bit about your philosophy as you get individuals who raise their hand and they say, can I join Scalable Solutions? Can I join Proactive Health? To help them think about how to best position themselves to meet your very high expectations to joining the team. We'll start with Glen and then go to Jason.
Sure. Yeah, this is the best part of my job so far. We don't have any programs that are out there for Proactive Health that are running, but working on them with the program managers that we have and then working with candidates thinking through these ideas is so much fun. Most professionally rewarding thing I've done in a very, very long time. And ultimately what this comes down to, the personality and the person matters, but we're ultimately hiring for your ability to come and really get to root causes and core, where's the edge of a real big problem and a novel way to approach it. So that takes like clarity of thought, clarity of communication, which I don't always do, and a very, some amount of grit that you're willing to just continually grind down and take what is a beastly hard, every one of the problems, especially in the proactive health space, is large and gnarly and has many, many competing elements to it. And so the ability to boil it down to say, here is in fact a small slice that I really believe that we can make a dent in, and here's the enabling technology, and here's the way that we should be thinking about that. It is both getting to that clarity of vision, and then the process by which we do that together is both incredibly rewarding, but that's ultimately like how, before, as you were building your job talk, as you were building your program, that process is co-development. And so at the same time that we're trying to figure out if it's the right problem and the right person to work with, we're also altering our strategy as an office. Like every person that we talk to and is giving us these ideas is honing our ability to think about every one of these problems. They're all interrelated. And so this is incredibly rewarding, and it is a high bar, but also realize that even anyone who's coming in and talking with us is actually altering the trajectory of the agency. And I deeply appreciate every one of those moments that I've had.
Well, Glenn, I couldn't have said it better. I'll just add that to your last point there is, with us, our offices are starting from scratch. So there's no baseline here. We're getting to pave new ground here on where we go with proactive health and where we go with scalable solutions. And so it's been incredibly fascinating, rewarding to engage with people to really think about what are those big problems they want to try and solve in this space. And they're really, really super passionate and energized, like Jessica and Kimberley here about, hey, I want to really tackle this. And think about, okay, well, how can we shape and mold that particular idea and concept into something that is hard and really fits that high risk, high impact bar for us, and will really have that meaningful impact if successful 3, 5, 10 years down the road. And so we're getting to build out across, we should have at steady state somewhere around 12 or so program managers. We have a couple on board now, so lots of room to continue to grow and shape out that, plug those holes of where we're trying to go.
I heard 15, Jason.
15. 15,
Yeah,
20,
20.
25.
We'll talk. All right, so I'm going to go back to Kim and Jessica. So something unique about ARPA-H is that the program managers are term limited to 3 years. It's just part of our model. What do you think about what's next for your programs in particular? And what are you thinking about doing to ensure that the innovations spurred by your programs actually improve health outcomes for all Americans?
So, happy to take that first. So I'm very passionate about the intersection of climate and health. I just came from Climate Week New York City to here, and part of what we get to do as program managers is really get out into the world and talk to leaders. I'd love to talk to people here about what they think that the most pressing innovations are required to tackle massive challenges like climate change and how that impacts health. Another really important aspect of our role is we need to be innovating and developing technologies in such a way so that they will scale in the marketplace at the end of these programs. And so that's another important part of the conversation. We're not just engaging with innovators, but we're also engaging with investors and individuals and companies and entities that can really provide feedback on what are the product requirements required for any innovation so that it will be scalable in the market and that it will be adopted by investors or companies at the end of the life cycle of a program. And programs typically run, I think, around 3 to 5 years, and so our job is to de-risk those innovations so that they will get picked up.
Okay. Well, first off, I have to say, as a program manager, one of the most inspiring part is working with all of the other program managers. I have never met such an incredible group of creative and kind people that are all lifting each other up with ideas. And so while I've come in with lymphatics as my main priority, and I worked super hard to get those 2 programs out because of the time crunch, I'm working surgeon hours, but I'm loving it and wanting to do that. And so do I have other ideas? Yeah, there's lots of things, and I'm willing and open to hear other ideas. Of course, my background is surgery and obesity, and and healthcare. And I think importantly, what I love about ARPA-H, and which I had to think very hard about when we work on those Hammer questions, is inclusivity and accessibility and affordability. And I didn't have to think too hard because as a patient, a mom, navigating the healthcare system and being in the trenches, I understood a lot of it. When I went back to my surgical career, I thought I had been a patient advocate, but man, I was now even a stronger advocate for my patients. And so we've built in very early, and it's mandated by our bosses, our leaders, to ensure accessibility, inclusivity, and equity, all of it. And so we've built that into our programs where we are going to engage early investigators, have our teams engage early investigators, build an army of lymphatic experts that want to bridge immunology and cardiology, and engage our patient ambassadors, our advocates, so that they have a voice from the very beginning, from the start of the study, because it's so important. The providers, the researchers, they need a voice, and the patients and the caregivers need a voice. And together, the science will be better.
And I will say, I love my job. I love everything I do. I love this organization. The only time I ever get a little bit of envy is when the program managers get together. And I just want to be a fly on the wall. Collecting 20 of the most innovative people in the U.S. and putting them in a room and saying, what should we talk about? I can't even imagine how much fun that must be for all of you. All right, we're getting close to time, so we're going to do another lightning round. And this one is about myth busting. So I think each one of us gets questions when we're at a conference or when we're out and about that we realize that there are still some uncertainties or myths associated with ARPA-H that we want to make sure are clear so that when people are thinking about joining us or thinking about working with us, they can optimize their time. They can make sure that what they're trying to bring to us is in fact what we need, and how we conduct our business is also something that they also really need to understand. So I am going to ask each one of our panelists to highlight one or two myths that they hear that you may have and that they want to make sure that you understand as part of this discussion today. So I will start. Who wants to start? I'll start with Jason.
I'll roll. Give Jessica some time to.
Such a generous human.
So you hear the term program manager, and I've heard this in different contexts, and that phraseology means different things in different contexts. In a corporate structure, it may mean one thing. In a philanthropic structure, it may mean one thing. And in our context, it means another. I just want to drive home a very important point, is that the program manager is at the heart of our organization. Glen and I, our jobs are to enable our program managers to be successful and to thrive. And so when you come into this organization as a program manager, and you pitch your program and you successfully get that program launched, you now become the CEO and owner of that program. You are anywhere from a $50 to $150 million program, and perhaps multiple different programs. You hold the keys to the success. You hold the keys to the impact. And I think that's very important, that don't put the term program manager into whatever box or framework you have. I think it's important you understand the context with which program managers work here. Program manager owns that program. They own the decision making in that space, and I think it's very important to share and promulgate.
Yeah. Oh boy. I think one of the questions that we get a lot is, can you team? And of course we want you to team, and we want you to bring the best people to do that work, not just your buddy down the hallway. Find the best that can make this successful, the technology successful. And the other thing is it just academia? Is it private? Is it industry? The cool part is it is all of those: small business, industry, large companies, small companies, private, and nonprofits. And so it's all comers, including international. What the idea is to bring collaboration together for the best teams to succeed with a bit of healthy competition.
We're all term limited. That sounds terrible. 3 years, renewable for another 3, at least for me. One of us might have a little bit longer tenure. This is the greatest thing ever. Everyone is hungry. Everyone is aligned to get stuff out there. Stuff moves, and I've been in startups, I've been in DoD, and nothing moves as fast as it does in this kind of a model. And so the term limits are actually awesome. And so there's a constant cycle of new talent and new ideas that will forever be present in this agency. And so embrace it and run with it. And I'm 15% done with my time at ARPA-H, 15.4% if we're really counting. And that's unless they decide to renew me. And you know what? There's a lot you can do with 80%.
So a myth that I often hear is that because we're government, we're slow. That's a myth. I was involved in the Sprint for Women's Health, It's been such a blur for me that I don't remember when it was announced, but it felt something like it was announced in May. So I'm participating as a program manager. People who wanted to get funds, so there was a $3 million fund or $10 million fund for teams, depending on where they were from a technical readiness level. They put in 3-page abstracts. We turned that around really quickly, and teams that were selected came in and did pitches, venture capital style. They were 30-minute long pitches, and I am right already in the contracting phase, just wrapping that up with these teams, and I think it should be publicly announced relatively soon who's getting the awards. So it's been a whirlwind, but nothing has been slow about the process of funding these innovators in women's health.
So I'm just going to knit a couple of things together that folks talked about, and it is how we do business. So one of the questions that I often get is really related to more of a grants-based organization. And we're not a grants-based organization. So as Justice highlighted, we do business very differently. And as Kimberley was talking about, we have to team. The reason it's so critically important is that when we launch our programs, or we pull something from an open call for innovation, or we do something like the Sprint for Women's Health, is these are all other transactions, which allows us to be very agile in terms of being able to assess an application and put funds out to start to achieve some of the end states that our folks want to achieve. But there are milestone-based payments. There is competition that is actively ongoing with any of the organizations that are participating. And we feel an intense accountability within ARPA-H to make sure that we are delivering on the promise of our mission. And so when there is an opportunity, if you have an opportunity to work with us, it will be an incredible experience. But it's also one where we have a strong relationship, where we know what we want to achieve, and hopefully any of you who could be performers realize that the intensity of the process to create the deliverables that we've negotiated through the OT. And so it is very different than the grants sort of cycle, grants-based organization. But it is one that's going to allow us to achieve those end states that we seek to achieve. All right, we just have less than a minute and 30 seconds left. And so I'm going to give each one of you the last word on one more thing that you want to make sure that everyone in the audience here knows about ARPA-H. So, start.
I get to go first?
Yeah, you get to go first. One last thing, Jason.
Best job I've had in government in my almost 20 years. I would just say there's a lot of us out here up on stage, many of us circulating around. If you have any questions about what it's like to be a PM, what it's like to work with us, please grab us in the hallways. We'd love to talk to you about it. So thank you.
I echo Jason. It's the best job I have had. As I said, an amazing opportunity. If you want to become a program manager, you have to be determined, and you really want to have the passion, and what an opportunity to make a change for so many.
I have the second best job at the agency. Hers is the best.
Yeah, and I would echo what Jason said. This is the best job that I've had in academia, industry, and my first job in government.
Yes.
And I'm having a great time.
And I'll just say, this is the best job I have ever had. Honestly, I'm surrounded by brilliant, energized, generally happy people. And it just makes everything we do such a pleasure. So hopefully that was helpful in understanding our organization and what we're doing. And as Jason said, feel free to reach out over the course of the next few days.